start it up here. So I know that a couple people are jumping on at the last minute here. So my name is Daniel Stein, one of the organizers. I'm the president of Stewards of Change, and welcome to the February 7th Let's Get Technical group. And it's going to be a really exciting call today. We've been preparing for it for quite a bit, quite a few sessions. So we're really looking forward to it. I am going to just share a few slides with folks before we dive into the content here. But as you'll notice on this slide, and you've probably seen from the communications we've already sent out, this is part one of a two-part series. We felt this week, well, when we were planning it, we felt that there were really a couple of connected parts of Unify, and so we couldn't do it all in one session and allow conversation. So we split it into two. So today will be part one, next Friday will be part two, and there will be other parts as we go forward, but we wanted to kind of keep them relatively close together to continue and to maintain the continuity of the events itself. So just a little bit of housekeeping, kind of rules of the road. Everybody is familiar with video conferencing. I think everybody is muted on. For those of you who want to come on, if you're on the computer as well, you have to unmute your computer and your phone. So that makes it a little more challenging. And so for again, folks who may be new to Zoom, you'll find, if you find your navigation bar, sorry, if you find your your Zoom navigation bar, you can find both the participants and also chat up there, and you can actually keep the chat open on your screen. I think you can just drag it off to the corner, and you can see track the conversation. We'll be tracking the conversation. You'll see some days from our team we'll be putting up messages. We'll have chat conversations and questions up there, and we'll be using that a little bit as we go forward today. So if you go ahead and find that, that's great. As always, we do try to engage as much conversation as we can. So you can put your questions in the chat panel. There's an opportunity to raise your hand, and also we would ask you just to break into the conversation as we move forward into the conversation. It's it's a little awkward sometimes on webinars to do that, but it works just fine. And what my suggestion is for people who are presenting, just give it a couple of seconds if you ask a question. Count to 2 or 3. For people to respond to your questions, so we don't have people stepping on each other's comments as much, but it's okay to do that. We are recording the call like all of them. They'll be posted to the NIC Hub afterwards for you to watch and share with your colleagues as we, those folks who couldn't make it here today. And there, as you know, there's been a couple of, well, there's a bunch up there, so feel free to binge watch as you so see fit. The last thing I mentioned before for folks who came on before is that if you're on both the computer and the phone, you can change your phone number. Oh, good. I see a bunch of people did that. You can change your phone number to your name by just hovering over it, and there's a little more button. You can go ahead and change and just type your name in so we see who you guys are there. And so with that, let's dive into today's agenda. So we're going to do some quick introductions. I'll tell you about that in just a minute. And then I'll do a very quick background and overview of NIC. It's one slide just for people who are new to it. One of the things that we're excited about is these calls are continuing to attract people from different domains and programs and arenas. And that's some of the most exciting part for us is to hear who's on the phone, who is new to the group, and hear their voices. It kind of adds a timeliness to the conversation, which is great. And then we'll have we'll dive into the presentation from the couple members of the Project Unify team who will be presenting as build sort of the connection between FHIR and Human Services and NIEM. And we'll finish up just with a little bit of what next week is going to look like and some things like that. So off we go here. Just for, before we do this, let me, what we'd like to do, hopefully we can do this in about 10 minutes or less, is we invite people who are new to the call or who have not been on for a while to just say hello and introduce themselves, where you work, where you're from, and a little bit about yourself there. Literally, we have quite a few people here, so just kind of keep it quick, but it's great to hear who you are, where you're from, what you're working on. And the way we do that, what we found is if you just type your name into the chat box, and then we just call on you in whatever order people are there. It seems to be the least chaotic way of going about this. So we can go ahead and get started on that. Hopefully we won't spend more than 10 minutes doing that. So who's up first? All right, Kathy Park.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep. Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Kathy Park. I'm the CEO at the National Council on Crime and Delinquency. We are a nonprofit national research and technical assistance organization working across the justice and human services sector domains around data, research, evaluation, analytics.
Fantastic. Welcome. Glad you made it today. Terrific. Jesse Tenenbaum.
Hi there, this is Jessie Tenenbaum from North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. I'm involved in a bunch of things regarding the INC, the Integrated Kids Project, as well as a lot of social determinants work going on in North Carolina. I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic, welcome Jesse. Gabe.
Hi, this is Gabe Cade. I'm with WellSky, which is a software development firm. We provide solutions to the post-acute care space, as well as a number of different human services settings. Long-time listener, first-time speaker, glad to be on the call, and glad to see Eric Jan is presenting. He does good work, so I'm glad to be able to hear what he has to say.
We will definitely second and third that. Welcome aboard, Gabe. Norris Brown.
Hello, everybody. Norris Brown with HS Link. I work with Eric. I'm the president of HS Link and glad to be on the call.
Hey, welcome. Thank you. Rena, it has been a while. Okay, while she struggles with her unmute button, let me go to Craig Cabello.
Hi, I'm Craig Cabello. I'm with Development Consultants Incorporated. We're a AWS Cloud partner, and I've worked on similar interoperability challenges with the Department of Homeland Security and the Criminal Justice Information System, so I'm particularly interested in this topic.
Oh, wonderful, great. It's a meaty topic. Welcome aboard. Latif.
Hi, this is Latif from JBS International. We have developed products in the HL7 FHIR and in the NIEM domains. So it's a very interesting topic on how the interoperability is addressed for these two domains. So very interesting topic, looking forward to it.
Thank you, terrific. All right, anyone else want to welcome themselves? Joanna?
Hi, this is Joanna Henry. I'm with the Office of the National Coordinator for Health IT. I'm working in opioids work and SDOH work as well.
Fantastic, that's great. All right, anyone else new to the call? Want to say hello? Going once? Let me see. Oh, Paul. Welcome, Paul. All right, Paul. You're not.
Yeah, I basically put it in
the
chat. You know, I work for MITRE,
okay.
CMS and DoD.
Great.
So, yeah.
Welcome. Great. Good to have a voice in the name. That's always a great part. And Sundays remind us *6 to mute and unmute yourself. Anyone else want to say hello?
Hey, Daniel, it's Rena. Sorry.
Hey, welcome. Great.
Thanks. It has been a while, and it's good to kind of reconnect. And I've supported this and believe in this for quite a while, and we're doing some projects around this. So this area. So looking forward to the conversation.
Great. Welcome. And Andy.
Hi, this is Andy Romanek. We're from
Hey.
Lurie Children's. Thanks for letting us join. We're also INC participants of the grant recipient, and we're also doing a lot of work in social determinants and social influencers of health here. So we're very excited to participate.
That is fantastic. So two things seem to go together, the SDOH and the INC program. So
Yeah.
come along, right? There's a lot of connectivity there. It's great to hear. Kara Paulus. Oh, you're there as well. Okay. You guys are from Larry. Say hello. Or not. Okay. Christine McCoy.
You might remind them *6.
Okay. Okay. Great. Christine is with the VNA of Central New Jersey, also an INC project participant, so that's great. Okay, one last person, Scott Gallant. No need to speak. Offering trust, governance, and distributed and federated. Great. You can see his comments in the box there. All right. Anyone else? If you are there, just jump in now. Say hello. Rachel. No, you're on mute there. You're on mute. Okay, we will get started as the conversation goes along. Feel free to, as you come on, it's also good if you're making a comment just to introduce yourself briefly there. That will be fantastic. And as I said, let me just start here with a little bit of just a bit of an overview of NIC, again, for new people to the call. Some people have heard this a few times before, but let me just talk a little bit about the NIC because it has a lot of applications to what we're doing here. Also, you get extra points if you turn your video on. So to see who you are, since we have that functionality here, feel free to do that. So briefly, NIC is a community of networks. We've been operating with under a grant from the Kratz Foundation for about the last year or so. We put up the National Interoperability Collaborative Hub and have been holding both webinars and conversations. Our main focus is on this idea of cross-domain learning and interoperability. Problem solving needs to happen not only within a domain or a program, but across domains. And so we sort of generally focus the world on these 6 domains: human services, public health, education, public safety, emergency medical response, and healthcare IT. Recognizing that these are really general topics or subject matter areas, and there are many other areas, whether it's housing or transportation or behavioral health, who have all advocated to have their own domain recognized. But as a way to sort of organize the thinking around this, we organized it in the past tense within this paper we produced for HIMSS a couple of years ago that looked at the similarities and differences amongst and between those domains. So in many ways, the core focus and mission of the NIC and the work we're trying to do is to really to cross-pollinate those domains so that we can reuse and leverage knowledge, learning tools, materials that are being developed. And where that is possible, we look to support that kind of effort. And certainly where they're unique, we want to recognize those differences and uniquenesses as well. So that's really the foundation of what we're doing here. Over the weeks and the months since we started doing this work, we've had more conversations really around and between and across domains, and those get really exciting. And I encourage you today, as well as you start to hear about what we're attempting to do with Project Unify, to bring your particular perspective to the table. And it's great to sort of just sort of announce it from that vantage point, so we hear that. And over time, we'll be continuing to focus on sort of cross-domain conversations, which I think is a unique perspective to bring to the table here. You can read more about it, obviously, on the NIC Hub and in the documents. I wanted to share for 1 minute with you about Project Unify. The URL is at the bottom of the page here. And oh, by the way, the presentation will be also put up on the NIC Hub. Just this week, we launched a very basic Project Unify group on the Hub. When you go to the Hub, you'll see that there's, I think, 8 or so groups now. And we wanted to provide a home for Project Unify so that the team members, can find information, sort of current thinking about what's going on, current documents, and ideally this will become an interactive work site. Obviously, we'll be continuing to have conversations, but it's hard in a synchronous way to keep everybody up to speed. You can see across the top here some of the buttons. You can see all the members that are on there, and you can feel free to join up for it. The grayed out part are going to be the work teams, and all this stuff may change as well, but there'll be specific work teams and where we'll be able to put documents, have conversations, and share other kinds of useful information. We are really interested in feedback on how to make this useful. It really is intended to be a resource for the organization and people who are engaged in it. So we'll be holding some sessions for people to provide feedback on it. But I wanted to let you know that it's there and that it is a work in progress. And you can see some of the core team members there as well. So join as you can and as you have time to participate. We appreciate that. So with that, let me turn our attention now to today's lineup. And so we have our three presenters today: Dave Walsh, who's the chair of Might Attack, who's going to lead us off with a kind of an orientation just to sort of focus on where we're headed with the Project Unify, followed by Mary Kratz from the Interoperability Institute, Mahin, talk about Interoperability Land, and also then Eric Jan from HS Link, and then yours truly with the TAM down below there. So what we wanted to do today, because this is a very sort of complex endeavor we're attempting to do. So we wanted to lay out a couple of foundational both tools and approaches as we start to lay out the framework that we're looking at Project Unify. And that's the reason why we've asked both Mary and Eric to share some of the work that they're doing as we move forward here. So with that, each of the presenters has their bio on here, and I think we've been through that in the past. Dave brings to the table just a wealth of experience within the Medicaid and healthcare community, an innovator and inventor in there, and is really leading the charge in terms of bringing people together around how this can work within the field. So with that, Dave, I'll transition to your first slide here and take it away.
Great, thank you, Daniel. Yeah, and welcome everybody. What I thought I would do is just kind of give an overview of what we are currently doing, where things are going. And I had the opportunity last week to go down to the ONC annual meeting down in Washington, D.C. And I've got two quotes here that are attributed to Secretary Alex Azar, one of the quotes, and the other one is from Dr. Don Rucker with ONC. So if we look at Secretary Azar's comments, where it says we need not just digitized records, but records that are transportable and interoperable. And those are the two key words that can be easily accessed and used in different forms. That clearly is at the heart of what we're talking about here. And the other comment was attributed to Dr. Don Rucker, who is the National Health Coordinator, and his vision was slightly different, but very similar, in that there should be an app economy and the entrepreneurial juices of the country should be allowed to unleash healthcare and to give patients choice. So what he's envisioning is an environment in which entrepreneurial individuals can come together and do creative things. So even as we talk about the big picture of what we're doing here with marrying healthcare information with human services and social determinants of health and so forth, it gets us into an arena where we could provide, and hopefully will provide, holistic applications that look at more than just one aspect of a human being. So I think those two quotes really kind of encapsulate what we're doing here. So Daniel, if you would go to the next slide. Thank you. What we are trying to do is align with the vision expressed by Dr. Ruckert and Secretary Azar. The goal is try and create an environment where we can bring that data together into something that's more powerful than just human services data or than just healthcare data, but look at bringing them together. And one of the things that I'm very actively working on is providing a strong open source platform that is targeted at these initiatives, providing a robust and secure foundation for interoperability. So the goal is more of a platform that developers can use to generate those apps that are going to access the healthcare information and that are going to access the human services information and the social determinants of health. So it is this particular project, which is the Unifi UX project, is really about a platform that developers can use to access the information that Mary is going to be talking about in a moment and that Eric is going to be talking about in just a moment. So one of the objectives is support for many devices in this environment, iOS and Android and browsers and desktops, and eventually Internet of Things and so forth, but an environment in which you can develop an app and have it be usable on all of those platforms. You know, I've been in the Medicaid space for quite a few years, and when we look back, when I was starting in it, there was a move to convert from green screens, fixed terminals, to possibly using a PC as a front end. Well, the world has gotten a lot more complex and a lot more capable. So individuals, whether they be citizens looking for information that relates to them, they may very well be using smartphones, because we got to consider that things like smartphones look as they do today, but now we're seeing about folding smartphones and more capabilities in those. So I think we can anticipate applications that run on a wide variety of devices. And we can look at this now as really an application accelerator. And again, I'm talking about the Unify UX or Unify user experience component of this, where it can be an application accelerator for developers and to empower innovators. So the objective here is not to develop the killer app. It is to develop a platform where innovators can develop the killer apps. They can innovate on it. You know, we went through the snafu in Iowa, where the application wasn't quite ready for prime time in terms of communicating the information. And that's a great example of why we're trying to do this. If we have an underlying platform that takes care of all those details and is thoroughly vetted, thoroughly tested, and so forth. And we can also expect that over time, the protocols that are being used, the security mechanisms that are being used, they will all change. So if you have a foundational capability to change that in one place as we go through different versions of exchanging this data, then we don't have to change the thousands of apps that the innovators create. It's more of a foundational initiative. So I think on the call today, we've got Andrew Lang. Andrew was with the state of Vermont, and recently he went to work for the Lantana Group, and he has volunteered to be the keeper of the open source initiative that we've got. So what we're talking about on this platform is all 100% open source, and right now we're looking at a liberal license. So if somebody were to look at what we're doing and say, that's clever, but what I want to do is fork it and make it different, that will be okay to do, or you can add to it. So our goal is truly to make it open source and usable for anybody. So some of the things that we're currently working on is FHIR-based APIs that are being provided by MyHIN, and Mary is going to talk to us about that. We've been working with MyHIN group and Mary's staff up there for some months now, and we actually have this operational, performing what they call CRUD operations: create, read, update, and delete, for any of the resources that Mary currently has up there. And that initial prototype application can run on an iPhone or an Android or within a browser. Desktop is coming along. So the goal is being fulfilled, if you will, in up at the MyHIN, and Mary's going to talk a little bit more. I'm looking more and more at MyHIN as a conduit for other accelerators, for other standards that are coming out, because they provide a really nice platform for doing that. And right now we're currently working with NIEM Health and Human Services and Eric John, and Eric's going to talk to us in a minute about their experience in a platform called HS Link. So the goal is to have capabilities in this Unify UX that allow people to access FHIR-based resources or to access human services NIEM-based resources, and to kind of remove the differences, the complexities between those two environments to the innovator community. And just one final comment that I'd like to make, and that is last week we had a presentation by Andy Krakoff, who really looked at data visualization, and that's one of the neat things that I see about the Let's Get Technical group. It's like a box of chocolates. You're never really sure what you're going to get, and I think Andy's presentation was a real eye-opener to me, that as we start making this data available to people, they're going to want to visualize it and so forth. So we're currently working with Andy to expand the platform to include visualization, where you have a widget that collects the data from the different resources we're going to be talking about, and then can visualize it for people. So we're expecting within a month, maybe two, to be able to show that visualization component. And then, of course, if you want to develop a different visualization, it can be plugged in the platform. So one final point that I want to make, on the last call, we had some volunteers of organizations who wanted to get engaged and help participate. Love to have anybody reach out and offer participation in it. That could be a coder who wants to implement this. It could be an expert such as Andy with visualization tools and so forth. So open to all comers on that. And with that, I'd like to introduce Mary Kratz, and Mary is going to talk about MyHIN and Interoperability Land. Mary? Yeah, you got it, Mary.
Thank you so kindly, Dave. Did the unmute and all of that work?
Yep, your
audio okay? Perfect. So thank you for the opportunity to present today. October 1st, took a new role as EVP of a new organization, an affiliate organization of the Michigan Health Information Network, or MyHIN, for the Interoperability Institute. So have worked many, many years in bioinformatics and really looking at that intersection of interoperability, telemedicine, but also business development. How do we really make these solutions make sense for the industry and for the healthcare domain? I come to this role from a seat with an interagency program at the State Department, the Office of the Global AIDS Coordinator in Health Diplomacy, where I held the seat for the Department of Defense in Health IT. So thank you for welcoming me and allowing me to share about the Interoperability Institute today. So we talk a lot about interoperability, and I thought to start my comments, it might be helpful to just take a step back. Really like this definition of interoperability from the Health Information Management Systems Society, where we really look at different information systems, devices, applications, now the visualization component. How do we organize all of that in a coordinated manner across our organizational boundaries to be able to exchange and really cooperatively use that data to meet the whole plethora of goals that we have across the health industry. So Dave and Daniel told me that this session is meant to be very interactive, so I want to open it up just a little bit. If any of the participants here have alternative or better definitions of interoperability, and while I give folks a moment to raise their hands or to chat, I will say whoever put in the chat box that CRUD is the worst acronym ever, I totally agree with you. Very good. Well,
Mary, this is Daniel. Thank you for that. I think we would concur that we're looking for suggestions on how to rename CRUD. But in terms of interoperability, one of the things we've been looking at a lot is, yes, it's all the technical stuff, and HIMSS does a great job, and their 4 levels is terrific in terms of defining it very precisely. But I think that as from perspective of coming at it from both a technical and a non-technical perspective, I think that the use of the term now is actually more broad than that. I think it includes the social, economic, human services, cultural, governance kinds of things. Now that the word has made its way finally into the lexicon, I think when people are talking about interoperability, and I think it's really important that we're thinking about it's beyond just a technical piece, because if we just deal with the technical components of it, we're still not going to get all the way there, right? We still need those other components, and how do those become interoperable? So we align governance models, and how do we deal with cultural differences when we're talking about sharing data? In some cases, it's meant not to be shared. People are really reluctant to share it. Other times, the culture is all about sharing. So I would just make sure it's broadened a little bit, which is, I think, one of the challenges with the HIMSS definition here. I'll just throw that out.
Very good. I like that, and certainly picked up on the economic aspects and the reason, and a huge advocate of free and open source solutions. It is interesting because even with open source solutions, there is that level of effort to actually build solutions, to build applications, systems, platforms, and how do we bring that together? And what are some of the emerging economic models around open source platforms where you still have to invest resources to bring solutions both to the industry and to marketplace.
Right. Great.
Very good. Well, in the interest of time, perhaps we'll move on, but we'll keep this interactive.
Moving.
Next. We'll move forward in the right direction here. Yes. So I think as all of us know, there's a lot happening around interoperability. Certainly, we all know that TEPCA, the new rules around the 21st Century Cures Act, are going to drop, anticipated to drop to innovate and really better the healthcare industry, and of course, the human and the health side to enable better outcomes. Next slide, please, Dave. Very good. So the Interoperability Institute mission really looks at 3 different pillars. I'm going to talk in just a moment about Interoperability Land, which is that platform that the NIC group is using through Project Unify to really enable those CRUD applications and participate in how we do interoperability. But I also wanted to briefly mention the 2 other pillars. Connect-a-thons are an event primarily for developers, have been co-opted of late very much by the Health Level 7 and other standard development organizations and the IHE group. We use that format within the Interoperability Institute to what we'd like to refer to as throw a better party and really use that format to provide a learning opportunity for organizations to bring together the business requirements with the developers and bring that innovation and solutions. The third then is what we refer to as our workforce program. We have a very, very robust student internship program currently with university students, what we refer to more as apprenticeships, because it's not just a student project. We actually enable across 25 different domains, from legal to IT to marketing and communications and everything in between. Looking to expand that program and really create a center of excellence. Where is this next generation health IT workforce going to come from? How do we teach these skills? And so that is the third pillar of the Interoperability Institute mission. Next slide, please. For those who are familiar with the MyHIN group in Michigan, I just wanted to briefly mention that recently we have brought on a 4th affiliate organization. In addition to MyHIN, the Volunteer Public Benefits Corporation, now the Interoperability Institute, Great Lakes Health Connect has been a long-standing organization in Michigan servicing primarily provider organizations, where MyHIN really has had a core constituency with the payer community. We've really brought that all together across the state, recognizing that it makes no sense to really have multiple organizations, in some regards competing organizations, and that as a state health information network, we need to figure this out. And so the affiliate, the Great Lakes Health Connect, has recently joined the MyHIN group. So thank you for that. So in summary, across the MyHIN group, MyHIN focuses on Michigan. We also have the Volunteer Public Benefits Corporation, where we provide technical assistance to other states that are working to enable their health information exchanges and health information networks. My passion is research and development. And so in the Interoperability Institute, I like this icon and referring to the Interoperability Institute as the brain trust, where we bring research and development, building that next generation health IT workforce, and using connect-a-thon formats to increase the IQ of all the organizations and partners that the MyHIN group interacts with. Next slide, please. So what I want to share with you today is a little bit about Interoperability Land, which is that interoperability platform that was built by the Interoperability Institute. Next slide, please. So this is a cloud-based digital collaboration platform. And we really designed it to power the future of how do we bring multiple organizations together to have a safe, simulated environment to develop, to explore different interoperability or integration approaches, and look at innovative technologies and implementation of standards. So it's really an environment where organizations can learn, build, and test the future of healthcare applications and services. It comes preloaded with synthetic data. So with the synthetic data and the simulated healthcare ecosystem, it's really an environment where you can fail, you can safely fail, you can learn, you can iterate, and we can all together as a community bring solutions forward. Next slide, please. So Interoperability Land is available on the AWS Marketplace. I did not want to tempt the gods and try and do a live demo of the platform, and live demos of platforms not so interesting. So I just put in the link here to the AWS Marketplace for any members of this community who might want to subscribe and try out the platform. Next slide, please.
Mary, well, just a quick definition of synthetic data. There was a question up here by Carmen. Just give 2 seconds on that, it would be great.
Great question. I think I have a little bit on that further along, but we'll address that now. So we actually use the Cynthia platform for a tool that we call Patient Gen that from the ground up generates synthetic data sets. So the team is currently putting together a library of 10 to 12 data packs of the most common transactions that MyHIN uses for interoperability. For example, ADT, admit, discharge, transfer transactions, generates those in an HL7 format. We're also able to generate a CDA format and can quickly generate 1,000, 10,000, 50,000, 500,000 synthetic data packs that we can load onto the Interoperability Land platform. We then take those data packs. So there's a second type of synthetic data where we take those data packs and actually build a data cube into the representation of a person, what we refer to as personas, so that over the simulated healthcare ecosystem, we can do an end-to-end simulation of the patient experience, or rather the patient's data experience. Sorry about that, Daniel. You had a follow-up?
Just one quick question. Is there structured data in there as well, or is it all unstructured? Or is it unstructured data or structured or both?
It is structured data within the HL7 transaction format for the for the data packs. For the personas, we have a unique model that we're further developing with a team of data scientists.
Great. Okay. Great.
So to visualize our cloud-based platform, as I said, it's an open sandbox environment configured to really provide that healthcare ecosystem. So many organizations and individual people that I talk to working to enable a FHIR server. Not so interesting of a task, very much a development task. So we've pre-configured that. And you can buy just one individual FHIR server or this simulated healthcare ecosystem, which includes a collection of payer, provider, lab, pharmacy, health information network. But it's also, you can modify it. So if you only want to have 3 payers and 7 providers in your healthcare ecosystem of FHIR servers, you can modify the representation and the associated FHIR resources behind those representations. We then take that single organization and replicate it a number of times across various collaboration partners, and then the interoperability between those organizations, essentially creating what we refer to as a virtual organization, and leveraging in that definition of virtual organization the legal work that MyHand has done across the state of Michigan, and essentially what we refer to as pre-lawyering our organization, our inter-organization agreements. So as we all know, an interoperability governance is a huge push, and Interoperability Land in the platform provides that pre-legal virtual organization to simulate, to take synthetic data, to run through any variety of scenarios to be able to explore interoperability in the healthcare domain. Next slide, please.
So Mary, if I can interject, this is Dave. I just wanted to say, as a group who has integrated with that, who has used that platform you were just talking about, the support that you offer and the support team was just excellent. It was a great experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate that. We certainly, in addition to the platform, provide technical assistance, and really the overall goal is to build community. Let's not focus on spinning up FHIR servers over the cloud. Let's focus on the real world solutions that we need to build and have that discussion around what each of our organizations and how we communicate, interoperate, put those legal business requirements in place to enable true interoperability. So this next slide goes into just a little bit of the use case scenarios that we use to build this multi-organizational example, and ties into this community really focused on the important endeavor of how do we enable that interoperability between healthcare services and the human services component. So I use the example from the HL7 FHIR Accelerator Gravity, which is focused on social determinants of health, to provide this example. From the Gravity Implementation Guide, here we have patient Rebecca Smith, a young mother with children who has asthma. So she needs to be treated for both asthma, but also in her life situation requires a referral for food, transportation, and housing assistance. So we see here on the interoperability HL7 FHIR side a very simple depiction of that data interoperability, typical HIN transaction, where Rebecca goes to a provider organization. Her asthma treatment is captured in the electronic health record. That information is then exchanged with a payer organization who checks to see if her health plan actually covers that asthma treatment, and then returns to the provider, and the pharmacy request is submitted. Next slide, please. So, of course, we know that things are not that simple in interoperability, and expanding that out into coverage requirements and discovery, if this particular use case did not go to just one simple provider transaction, but actually had multiple encounters, had encounters with their health information network, perhaps encounters across states, those interactions between the provider, the health information network, and the payer. But the premise of this conversation is, how does that healthcare ecosystem then interoperate with the human services side? And you see in red at the bottom of the slides representing that, a fourth organization. How would we link the Interoperability Land sandbox with HL7 FHIR servers emulating a healthcare ecosystem with an HS Link sandbox, and have had some delightful conversations with Eric exploring some of the technical architecture and possibilities of how that might be accomplished. Next slide, please. So both systems, I understand, run on a cloud-based platform. Again, Interoperability Land, HL7 FHIR, HS Link, NIEM standards. And a question for this community: does anyone know if the HL7 FHIR to NIEM mapping has been accomplished? Does anyone have any awareness on that? Hearing none, but of course everybody's muted.
There's a not yet.
Apologies.
There's a not yet from Carmen. Go ahead.
This is Brian, the technical lead for NIEM Health. And my apologies. Yes, I was racing for the mute button. No, not yet. We have started it. We got some basic demographics mapped, but anything beyond that that might be in the in this proof of concept scenario, we would need to map as we identify what those elements are. I should say resources and elements are.
Well, and I want to state that, oh, please.
This is Al Taylor from ONC. We just had a conversation with Daniel the other day about this, and it's comforting, or it's encouraging to see that the NIEM to FHIR mapping is underway. One of the things that I pointed out to Daniel, and a lot of the folks on the call may already be aware, there's been a lot of extensive mapping done between FHIR and a lot of other non-healthcare related models, including research and registry models, research and registry networks, and that mapping, much of that mapping is publicly available for review. Whether the manner in which that mapping was done could be a benefit to the NIEM mapping effort, and the way that I look at it is that if the mapping is done consistently, it helps with it makes it easier to do the mapping, and it makes it more easy for the mappings to be, to go even from, say, NIEM to FHIR to a research network if the mappings are done in a consistent manner, if that makes sense.
Indeed. This is Brian. I would love to leverage work that's already been done. So offline, if you could pop me some email about it, I'd appreciate it. And the NIC site should have my email address.
Okay. As would I. So I would encourage if we can get some of that information posted on the NIC Unify project, that'd be fantastic. Yeah. And I just wanted to say that while this representation shows Interoperability Land as an HL7 FHIR resource, one of the pieces that the team is working on is not HS Link as a separate freestanding sandbox with the big green arrow where we connect, but actually bringing HS Link in as a NIEM resource within the simulated healthcare ecosystem of Interoperability Land. So Interoperability Land is not meant to be just HL7 FHIR, but it's very new, and that was our initial installation, was an HL7 FHIR compliant ecosystem, but very, very interested in NIEM and other sandbox connections. So with that, I'll end my comments with an invitation to join with the HL7 FHIR Accelerator community and other innovators from industry, from the academe, the 28th and 29th of May in Detroit, Michigan. MyHIN and the Interoperability Institute will be hosting what we refer to as an Interopathon. Not just your plain connect-a-thon of developers coming together, but really interoperability and a connect-a-thon, what we refer to as an interopathon, to bring business people, innovators, developers, and key influencers in the industry together, and that is followed on the other side of the weekend by a MyHIM Legal Summit, referencing some of the governance piece and that pre-lawyering that we've done across the state of Michigan. So with that, if there are no questions, comments, I'll turn it back over to Daniel for our next speaker. Thank you.
Hey, quick question for you. How does HS Link compare to a company like InterSystems, you know, which focuses on interoperability?
Eric, I think that question is for you.
I haven't heard of HS Link, so that's why I was asking. And, you know, things like companies like InterSystems are, you know, been around for a long time.
Mm-hmm. So I know I think of companies like InterSystems more as data hubs that have built a model around healthcare data transactions.
Data hub, okay, interesting. They do a lot of mapping with their healthcare platform. That's why I was wondering.
Okay.
Eric, are you, I think you're there?
Yep, I'm here. Can people hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. Before we jump in, let me just ask, I know Robert just volunteered to participate in the conversation, Deglicad from HHS. So welcome, thank you, Robert, for that. And just to pick up on Mary's comment, as we transition now to Eric, any burning questions for Mary? I know she covered a lot of territory in a very short period of time. And we'll save some time also both during and after Eric's discussion here as well.
Great. And actually, I don't have a question at this point in time, but I just wanted to say that clearly there is some internal conversations with Albert and ONC with the CIO on talking about not only Unify, but how we would see opportunities working together with all you folks on these kind of particular projects. So I just wanted to just put it out there that we're having both internal conversation as well as these external conversations. And I'm looking forward to the kind of, I would say, co-partnership with all you folks. So that's it for me. And
thanks, Robert. Okay, so let's move to Eric. Got about 15 minutes, Eric, to kind of take us through a little bit of the HS Link and most importantly, the link and the connection with Interoperability Land and sort of the core foundation of the work we're doing to kind of stand this up. So I think you're unmuted, and off we go.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Yan. I'm the CTO of HS Link, and I've been a consultant for Alexandria Consulting in the human services space since about 2002. I'm kind of going to give you a sneak peek of what Project Unify is contemplating. None of this is set in stone. Mary's definitely given us a great overview of Interoperability Land and alluding to some connections and the whole general idea of what Unify is attempting to do. But I'm going to get a little more specific about, not too much more, and we have another meeting next week where we can go into more detail, and maybe we'll have more things solidified at that point. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the use case. And then I'm going to talk about HS Link in a little more detail, so it's less of a question mark for everybody, as I'm hearing from some of the questions and comments. Hopefully I can elucidate more on why it's unique, why it's being used for this proof of concept. So we inherited a use case from past work that MightyAttack has done, and Tom Silvius was generous enough to provide all the documentation on the use case. It was in general, it was or to simplify it dramatically, it was an opioid addiction use case scenario involving courts, human services case management systems, healthcare systems, and we looked at past proof of concepts, and we thought, okay, well, this use case has pretty significant human services components to it. let's bring in a human services system to complement the healthcare resources provided by Interoperability Land. Another thing we wanted to do that's a little bit of a change from the use case that Tom provided us was to add in social determinants of health. It's a you know, a huge topic of conversation across many health and human services domains and of very high interest to funders and everybody in this space. So we really thought we would be remiss if we weren't adding in a social determinants of health component to this. So the two new things to this proof of concept are, hey, let's bring in a human services server, something that's not healthcare, something that doesn't know a whole lot about healthcare, but is performing its role actually in production systems in the United States already. So, also, we wanted something that was open source. And so I'll get more into HSLink and why it fits that bill. But one thing that we quickly determined, Brian Hanspicker has you know elucidated this already in this call, and Noam Arts brought it up in prior meetings as well. We need a strong mapping between human services data standards, mainly represented by NIEM. And looking as we move forward to increasingly represent all of human services, we need mappings between the NIEM health and human services, not just NIEM health domain, but all of NIEM's you know, human services related domains, and healthcare systems via FHIR protocols. Can you advance the slide, please? Daniel, thank you. So this is what Tom Silvius gave us, and it's a very high level of interactions, or a high number of interactions between the different actors in the opioid addiction use case. It doesn't contain the social determinants aspects that we've been discussing adding in recent proof of concept meetings, but this is where we started. Can you advance the slide again, Daniel? Thank you. So you can see that, you know, as Tom you know, added an enumeration of the various interactions between the systems, again, not containing the social determinants ones we have added or are contemplating. But you can see that we're looking to model with this proof of concept, perhaps not all of those interactions in that sequence diagram in the prior slide, but I've circled some of the ones that we're looking at that could be accommodated by HSLink storing NIEM data structures within it. And perhaps the FHIR interactions could involve Interoperability Land, but we're just looking at probably looking at a subset of the interactions for our initial proof of concept, just so that we're not tackling on a huge chunk of technical tasks to complete all this. Can you advance again, please? So we're just starting to flesh out, and I don't have clearance on this. This isn't a finalized diagram, but just to show you how the different pieces may relate, we're looking at a UX that would be, you know, an open source user interface. Multiple roles are being contemplated for the UX user. Maybe at first it will be one, or maybe we can do more. But the UX may drive some of the messaging between the courts, child welfare, sending messages to HSLink. At this point, I'm thinking a good place for HSLink is to model the perhaps a local or state human services administration, which is collecting these messages and trying to act upon them. And then you can see off to the right is Interoperability Land, receiving FHIR messages from HSLink, with an intermediary, which would be an identity server, which we're thinking should be a smart on FHIR protocol, which consists, I'm told, of OpenID and OAuth 2, both of which, well, OAuth 2 is what is used by HSLink as well, and we would have to, HSLink is a authentication provider right now, and so we'd have to make it a client, so just reversing it, but it's a simpler task. But anyway, these are some of the interactions we're contemplating. To get the data from its source system or mock source system, the child welfare messages and the courts messages could possibly be sent driven by the user. They hopefully would be represented as NIEM payloads. We're looking at just standardizing on JSON payloads for this demonstration. NIEM has guidance on how to map any XML schema, define messages as JSON LD. So we're thinking about doing that, but either any NIEM format should be fine. And the protocol that HSLink would use to store this data is, I guess the FHIR equivalent that we'd be using to store, to create, read, update, and delete these NIEM payloads within HSLink would be an existing World Wide Web Consortium standard called Linked Data Platform. So it's just a way to send, restfully send payloads to a server that can store, and manage those resources. Those messages coming into HSLink would then cause, based on perhaps Brian Hanspicker's mappings or other business logic, social determinants of health messages being fired off using FHIR APIs to Interoperability Land, and perhaps some response messages coming back, all of which might be viewed by the Unify UX user role. So that's kind of where we're at. We don't have, full consensus as a group on exactly what's going to happen when, but we want to do something along these lines involving the prior use case, or at least components of the prior use case, and adding in social determinants of health. Can you advance the slide again, Daniel, please? So Project Unify is looking to build out its infrastructure, or anything that's being created under this project, as open source code. We really want to show our work. Now, in the human services domain, there's not a lot of production human services code. There's some projects and such, but we thought HSLink, or I suggested using HSLink for this project because I'm fully involved in the project. It's all open source code released under the Mozilla public license version 2, which means that if you use the code in your own project and change it, you have to publish back to the world your changes. So it's kind of like general public license that way, but it is true open source, and it is run in the production world. It provides services for various counties and municipalities and agencies in the U.S. doing different tasks for human services, which I guess underlines its flexibility as a system. It's not meant to do one particular workflow, but really provide a data platform for any kind of interactions. Could you advance the slide again, Daniel, please? This slide's redundant. If you could advance it again, sorry, out of place. So I wanted to provide resources on HSLink. There's a website, and then there's a GitHub, a series of GitHub repositories. We're not in just one, but we're in 3. The core one has the main platform servers. The coordinated entry link shown there has the code related to a particular housing match project and an app that an app uses with HSLink. And so it also has custom survey builders, assessments, scoring tools that are built into the APIs, which any app can use, even though it was designed, or it was built originally for one housing match use case. And then there's the data integration code for the data lake, which would store the NIEM payloads in HS Link. So the data lake is schemaless. It's just waiting to hold any kind of payload which is provided to it from external apps such as Project Unify. And it is built on the Apache Marmota. We actually took the Apache Marmota top-level open source project for Link Data Platform and incorporated it into HS Link. And so that's what essentially we'll be using. So we didn't have to reinvent the wheel, which is great about this project. And then the API docs are for HS Link are linked at the bottom of the slide. Can you advance it again, please, Daniel? So what can you do with HS Link? What is it? It's a platform as a service. It's not an app. It's not a user interface. It has app interfaces, mainly a home app and a built-in or an administrative app, which is just another third-party app, really. The Community Technology Alliance in San Jose has built a coordinated entry for housing match app, and their code is open source as well. You can view it at that site. So you can build third-party apps. It can integrate with systems that are not apps driven by users, such as Interoperability Land, legacy systems. So really, it's not dependent upon something that one might consider an app. It's something much more institutional or legacy-based platforms. You can unduplicate your clientele using an open source, open EMPI, which is a leading master patient index product out there, which runs as a service within a service-oriented architecture that we've incorporated. You can store schemaless linked data in one of multiple formats. I didn't even list all the formats using the Apache Marmota data lake. Can you advance the slide again, Daniel? It has two databases. One is a PostgreSQL open source database, which stores the data and powers the APIs for integrations, for interoperability in real time. However, all that data is synced over to a big data warehouse running on Hadoop, and people can use any tool they wish, Power BI, Tableau, RShiny, whatever, SPSS, whatever your data scientists or analysts care to use, and you can build beautiful analytics against the data stored in the big data warehouse. So that is I guess a side feature of HS Link. A key and critical component of HS Link is that you can organize access to your project data by project groups, subgroups, any kind of overlapping or intersecting configuration of projects, so that each user has a role and then membership in projects or project groups and subgroups. And then there is access control between those users. Now, all this is within one customer account of HS Link, which is cloud hosted, even though the code is open source. The HS Link also enforces client data sharing. So it has a release of information API, which can store multiple types of documentation and has a date range constraint, after which the client's consent is revoked and the records are no longer available within the sharing, within the inter-project sharing. Can you advance the slide again, Daniel, please?
Yeah, we're gonna open it. Let's see if we can do this in a minute, so we have a couple minutes to talk.
Excellent. So this is my final slide, just to a visualization of how the projects can share between customer accounts or within a customer account, how you can have complex access control between the various projects. So we could, within HS Link, mimic a court system or a county human services department just by having separate vertical cylinder or vertical boxes like as you see in the diagram. So that's essentially my presentation on HS Link. I hope that answers some of the questions about why HS Link might be a good fit for modeling the human services component of Project Unify. The real reason is, it's open source and it doesn't have any prejudice against any third-party app that we might build or integration with external systems such as Interoperability Land, which we can notify with HS Link either synchronously or asynchronously. So with that, I'll end my presentation and open it up to questions or comments.
Thank you, Eric. That was great. Thank you, Mary, for that. I hope we've laid out a baseline there to at least stimulate more questions as people sort of digest this work. So let me just be quiet for a second, see if there's anyone sort of.
So Daniel, if I could ask Mary a quick question. I know that one of the things you depicted on one of your slides there, Mary, was an implementation of HS Link within Interoperability Land. So you could really be testing the health and human services, if you will. Are you thinking about any of the other any of the other accelerator projects, Gravity or any of the others?
Great question, Dave. What we're enabling within Interoperability Land, our focus right now, and the team is actively working on Gravity for social determinants of health as a focus. DaVinci, which is the payer-provider exchange. We've completed the use case around care coordination and are now doing a deep dive through prior authorizations, which is really a hard one to crack. And then the third is Karen, and just this morning talked to, I'm sure many in this community know Mark Scrimshire, working for CMS on Blue Button 2.0. So looking at integrating those three FHIR accelerators into the interoperability ecosystem.
That's great. Kind of a one-stop shop for development and testing of applications that will use that. One other quick question, then I'll be quiet, Daniel. And that question surrounds. Oh my gosh, I forgot it. Go ahead, Daniel.
Okay, I'll pick it up while you're juggling there. So Carmen asks about whether or not that's, to go back to you, Mary, prior authorizations for meds or all prior authorizations.
So right now we're looking more broadly at what is a generic model that we could use for all authorizations. Certainly using meds as one of the examples or one of the use cases.
Thank you, Daniel. That spurred what I was thinking of. And
excellent.
If you look at prior auths, there I typically think 278, not the most used transaction out there, but an EDI HIPAA-like thing. Where do you see those two worlds meshing together? 270, 271 would be a great fit in here. Are you thinking about other administrative transactions?
That question is to me, Dave, on the EDI administrative transaction. Most certainly, as a HIN, that is our core function, is many of those administrative transactions. So as I said, we're just modeling this out, and there's a lot of complexity around prior authorizations. It is one of the use cases within the DaVinci. There's 17 use cases within DaVinci. So it is quite a lift, but from our experience as a HIN, recognizing that this is one of those areas that if we could actually bring some innovation and solutions, it would enable what we need in marketplace for interoperability.
That's great. Thank you.
Now, I also have a question back to the group. As we were prepping for this week and kind of making a tie into this two-part series, in the initial dialogue with Eric and some of the challenges that we're seeing within Interoperability Land, as you link these different environments together, one of the biggest challenges in building these virtual organizations is, do you trust that person who's knocking at the door saying, let me in, I want to access data, let's be interoperable? And if you do know who they are and they're within your trust network, how do you enable that electronic question of, okay, I'll let you in the door, but what do you want? And as Eric talked about with the role-based access control and some of the work that HS Link has done. So a question to the group at large and a tickler for next week in doing that deeper dive around how do we do identity and authentication to really truly enable interoperability across the health and the human services sides.
Yep. That's a great setup, Mary. Thanks so much for that. And that's part of the, I mean, that's really the core reason why we set up these two in a row, was to be able to do just that, to dive into the person matching and authentication and those kinds of things. So we'll be bringing some additional, in addition to this group, we'll be bringing some other subject matter experts to dive even more deeply into that topic. So we're trying to live up to the technical part of let's get technical. So we don't want to disappoint anybody. If you're not getting your technical hit, let us know and we'll dive down to the bedrock, as we say here. I think it's amazing to be able to do this as well. And so I want to ask the group for a couple of things. I put up a note just a second ago, which was, as you think about this, or as you talk internally, or as you talk with your groups, or whatever the sort of the configuration is, feel free to pose a question and post it on the hub page on the Project Unify group. I showed that URL to you earlier. It's on the site. You can get to it. It's easy to get to it. There's a button now on the homepage of the NIC site that says Project Unify. Go in. You should be able to post a question in the discussion group. I would love to be able to do that, or have you ask, sort of invite you to do that over, the next couple of days, 3-4 days, by Wednesday or Thursday of next week, so that we get a sense of the kinds of topics we want to discuss. Sometimes it's hard to jump in the middle of it. You're not formulating, to think about it a bit more. But I think that would be a great way to listen, have your voice, and maybe you need to do a little homework and to really, really sketch it out a bit. And contribute to that conversation, and we'll go there and we'll look at it as we prepare for next week's call to make sure we're getting those questions. As you heard, we've got two major components of this thing, which we're trying to connect, trying to bring in the NIEM data, trying to simulate that in a way and exchange this work. I know that is and will be of interest to many folks. Anybody who's dealing with social determinants, and folks who are on the INC world, or in the INC world, are, I'm sure, thinking about that quite attentively at this moment in time. How do you do that? And of course, one of the things that we're committed to in terms of sort of open source thinking here is, what can we do that would be extensible, replicable, so that we can start the base? And I'm seeing here on the side some of our partners and colleagues are offering up some resources and trying to create that compendium so that we can level set what we already know, so we don't recreate the wheel. Time, resources are limited. So we'll be posting some of those that are available. We'll be posting the links on the site. Hopefully that'll be available to you, and then we'll begin to sort through those things and be able to reference those as we go forward. So So with that, I want to just thank people for making the time, sticking with the conversation here today. And we really look forward to next week when we get to go a little deeper into it. And I, encourage you to join the group. I think as of the other day, there were 35 or 40 members already, and we just put it up. And let us know if you're actively, if you want to participate, you want to lurk, if you want to just become part of the core membership group, and that involves, some work during the week or between meetings. So we get that together. And I think that we're on a good roll here. There's a lot of interest from a lot of different partners, and so we have this momentum here that will allow us to do that. You'll get some more communication from us, and I will also just say that in discussing, also if you remember back from the other week, we talked about NIEM Health, which is another group that we set up. We are looking at doing a session in the next couple of weeks. Kate and Ryan will be structuring that so that we get to go through NIEM 101, and that's what Kate just put up a note here. It'll be on February 29th. We'll get a notification out there. There'll be a 2-hour session focused on with the NIEM Management Office, as well as diving deeper into the health domain. So we're going to come back and provide some more. Oh, sorry, it's the 26th, not the 29th. We'll be providing some more fundamental information. And again, I encourage you to go back and listen to the recordings, some of which are pretty detailed around some of these things. Bring your questions, bring your colleagues to the table, join the group. And with that, have a wonderful weekend. Thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you next week at this time. Have a great day.
Thanks, Daniel.
Thanks, Mary,
Thanks,
and
Eric. Thank you, Mary.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.